Warning, this video will contain major spoilers related to Witcher 3's main story and both DLCs. If you have not played the game yet, you should.
I'll remember your teachings always, and the sacrifice you made.
I know that montage got some emotion out of you, but prepare for more, because in my playthrough, I messed up. I thought I was making the right decisions. I've never felt this sad about decisions I made in a video game. I actually stared at my screen with my mouth wide open as the monsters crept in and Geralt just sat there, motionless, on his knees, reminiscing on Ciri's life. I couldn't believe she died, that CDPR wrote her to die. What a ballsy fucking move. Witnessing that, I immediately reloaded an old save and finished the game again, just so I could have the satisfaction of Geralt not being morbidly depressed.
You lie. I don't feel a thing anymore.
Though, I was a little sad that the sword wasn't for me. But what a ride. What a thoughtful story. Something that's rarely achieved by games are these moments of reflection where you consider the birth of decisions you've made, what you could have done better, what you should have done that you didn't. I mean, most games I play, I prefer going balls to the wall evil because it's more fun, and usually leads to cooler rewards and cutscenes. Witcher doesn't really allow for that, but I wouldn't want it anyways. I wanted to see Geralt succeed, have a calm, fulfilling life, and a full circle moment finally getting back with Ciri and having this chase end. Following along from the moment you enter White Orchard, Vesemir helping you kill a griffin to helping the Baron, meeting Kira, encountering the Wild Hunt for the first time, going to Skellige, maneuvering through their warrior culture and helping settle the claim for their new ruler, followed by returning to Kaer Morhen to just chill out and be a regular dude for a little bit, before and
I'll remember your teachings always.
with it evolving into traveling through different dimensions. I didn't expect any of this at all, but I was pleased to see it. Who would have thought that the game would also subtly lay in parenting motifs by punishing you for being overly strict and protective? All this ground the game covers in terms of the emotionality of one man, his relationships between lovers, friends, mentors, and wards. This game's less about the combat and more about life, at least more about Geralt's life. I don't find much of this relatable, if I'm being honest, but it doesn't need to be, because I don't need or want that in video games, movies, or TV shows to begin with. I just want a good story. And I don't want to dwell too much on the main game, since I talked about it in length in a previous video already, but I had a lot of thoughts pass through my mind seeing all of this, and, well, you've played it before, so you understand. So let's get into the DLCs. We start with Hearts of Stone. We were told a tale revolving around Gaunter O'Dim and Olgierd von Everec, one an undefined being of some sort of magnitude, referred to as evil incarnate by Old Man Shackleslock, whose power has afflicted Olgierd's life in more than one way, turning his heart to stone, both literally and metaphorically. I have a lot to say about these DLCs, honestly, so I'll try to follow a loose structure as I break my thoughts and feelings about these down. To start, one of the most important aspects of Witcher 3 in itself was its character work. In this DLC, only 2 characters end up really mattering, but the notable supports revolve around Iris, Olgierd's deceased wife, and an old friend of Geralt's, Shani. This DLC in a nutshell is a fun story tying directly to the folktale of Pan Twardowski. As for the major players, Gaunter is understood at a glance. He causes mayhem, dismay, and anguish, all in order to take human souls. As an antagonist, he hits every note as a pure villain. Olgierd, on the other hand, is really only known as a raider turned arcane enthusiast following his blood contract with Gaunter, leading to the death of his brother and loss of feeling towards his wife, Iris. I have some issues with this, as I'd grown accustomed to the fleshed out personal relationships Geralt built along his travels. Think of what you know about Hafnar's nature, Ciri's nature, even the Baron's nature. I don't feel like I learned much about Olgierd during this whole DLC. Is he a good person? I'm not sure, but he is remorseful. The only thing is he redeemable? Even within his remorse, he committed violent acts. For example, having brought his clan to this woman's house, indirectly leading to the death of her father and the cinder of her estate. I found it hard to sympathize with his plight, and in the end, I still didn't. I think there were some missed opportunities, especially in the Painted world, to focus more on showing his past prior to the sadness and anger he felt after his dealing with Gaunter. As well, I was a little disappointed we didn't get to explore more of the Ophiri culture following the mix-up with the Toad Prince. After the storm, I actually thought we'd washed up in a new land from like all the sand, and I opened up my map only to find we were right by Novigrad. I guess it was nice to have that one moment speaking a new language, but experiencing culture and tradition in fantasy settings is what I love so much about them. That's what made Novigrad stick out so much. That's what made Skellige stick out so much. Whether it's language, how the society acts, or even just the architecture of a new land, I love it. Despite that, what this DLC did so well was its presentation. From the memorable cutscenes featuring Gaunter and Olgierd, to the moments like the painted world gathering evidence and piecing together memories, and any opportunity for Geralt to look through monster dwellings is always a great fun time. Then having a wedding to go to and experience the swagger of Vladimir was nice, though the importance of it felt a little wanting in the end. But the real draw of this DLC was Gaunter's final zone. It was really well designed, perfectly conveying a landscape meant to distract, to distance you from the riddle. With the mirrors being out in the open, it diverts your attention from the obvious answer, water. And there's even a particular part of the area that seems to sound like there's rushing water, which actually tricked me into plummeting to my demise a few times. But not all was rosy. I did have one particular problem with this DLC, and that was pacing. I felt the pacing was a little all over the place. At times it was too fast, and at times it was also too slow. Let's take for example that Ophiri encounter, the Toad specifically. I personally don't think Geralt, through the entirety of Witcher 3, would have committed immediately to killing the monster, and instead recognized it as a curse. I think it would have been really interesting and built up Gaunter's character and power if instead we tried to lift the curse, but realized we couldn't due to the extent of Odin's power. Not only would that have established Gaunter early on as a mystery figure, it would have set the tone for his strength and also raised the stakes on helping Olgierd by discovering this isn't any ordinary curse at play. As for parts I thought were too slow, both the wedding and the auction house took a little too long for the level of importance both of these events have down the road. I think the wedding would have benefited from only allowing you to take part in a few activities before the night is over, just so that on replays you can focus on having a new experience in that moment. With the auction house, the box itself meant nothing to Olgierd in the end, and it just felt like an errand he thought of at the last second. Though, this moment was heartwarming.
Did he at least die like a witcher?
No. He died like a hero.
There is that.
I didn't have much fun with the boss fights during Iris's portion either, having overshadowed the moments to characterize and flesh out Olgierd's past. I think anyone who played this DLC would agree they'd have liked to understand his character more, or even just get an opportunity with him to make amends for his misdeeds, like visiting Vlad's tomb and apologizing, letting him know the truth, or going back to Iris's grave and paying amends before walking off into the sunset. Those brief moments to just make it so everything we learned matter. Think about how far it would have gone in characterizing Olgierd if he deployed his pack to rebuild that house he burned down. In all, Hearts of Stone was definitely more focused on being a self-contained story, and it definitely accomplished that, playing out like an elaborate side quest akin to the Barons, but I just don't think it did enough. It didn't feel as cohesive or satisfying to me. In all, I'd give this DLC a 7.8 out of 10. I think it was good, but I don't think it was great. Yet, there was one more. Another DLC, Blood and Wine, which takes us to the fairy tale-like land of Toussaint, as Geralt heeds the call of Beauclair's crisis, with an unknown beast killing storied knights of great renown. We encounter the Duchess, Anna Henrietta, and an old friend, Regis, and the centers of the conflict revolving around a powerful vampire named Detlef and the Duchess's long-lost evil sister, Sienna. This story revolves around moral decisions that hold the grand scope of an entire kingdom in its palm, a murder mystery for the ages. As I mentioned just a moment before, I love experiencing culture and tradition in fantasy settings, and I got exactly that. Toussaint's vivid green color grade bolsters the liveliness of its city streets, with Beauclair boasting colorful buildings, bustling townspeople, and some exquisite art. The framing of the region itself was exemplary, showing you rolling green hills contrasted with sprawling manors and towns that you could see from miles away, the fairgrounds where you could take part in some arena fighting, and the small side quests dotting the streets, with many moments being funny and particularly charming, such as the dam bank, and from those you're then given the bombastic moment of doing some detective work in the midst of a party, followed by a tense sit-down with Detlef face to face with Anna. There were other moments, but all of this created such a memorable experience that you could feel Beauclair being its own mini Novigrad, a section that demanded your attention and seared into your memory yet another layout of city streets and rustic architecture. Things you may not appreciate your first time, but things that lie dormant in the back of your mind regardless. Then on top of that, the character work here was flawless. Anna, Damien, Regis, and Sienna being fully fleshed out characters with their own backgrounds, fully explained, and personalities that are understood through various interactions. And what I loved so much about this DLC was the impulsive decisions made by characters like Anna and Detlef that push the story into bounds of uncertainty. Let me tell you how my time in Beauclair went. I quickly assigned fondness to Milton de Peyrac-Peyran. I mean, come listen to that name, Milton de Peyrac-Peyran. That is such a cool fucking name. But as we know, he dies almost immediately by the hand of Detlef. Due to this, I was immediately angry at Detlef until Regis shows up and speaks his piece. We come to find out that Detlef is influenced by ransom notes, which the Duchess responds to rather promptly and assertively, as she takes the forefront in a lot of matters, which I really appreciated, giving us the opportunity to see she is someone who does not take her kingdom's safety for granted. How wrong I was. Sometime later, it's discovered Syanna was using Detlef the entire time to carry out her wrath. And despite the evidence presented and ultimatum given by Detlef, Anna decides it best to ignore the beast, pin all blame on it, demand its head, and protect her evil sister, who we also learn had planned to kill her too, but that was a bit later. Personally, I wanted Syanna dead, because I quite enjoyed Detlef and found him redeemable due to the remorse he displayed after the murder of Delacroix. Due to the Duchess's decision, half her city was burned and ravaged by vampires, massacred masses of people lining the streets, and her guardsmen defeated and demoralized. Despite all this, she still locked Geralt up, and ooh, I was so mad. I was so mad at this point. I was texting my buddy about this one moment because it really pissed me off. Because I was assuming that Syanna's death was the bad end. But it was a twist, as Dandelion appears and frees Geralt from lockup, only to receive that final bit of proof showing Syanna wanted Anna dead. I felt so gratified in the end that the game went out of its way to prove me right, but also scared me into thinking I was wrong. I mean, seriously, when the cutscene cut back into me being imprisoned, again, I texted my friend in a fit of rage how the game just did me, how dumb the Duchess was, only to be let out, with Geralt giving one final smirk to the camera before the credits rolled. What a badass. But that's not it. Here in this DLC, I think the pacing was done really well too. Obviously, with a whole new zone, you've got a lot more opportunity to fill out some gaps in understanding, but it didn't rush to throw out any characters. We don't even see Syanna until the last 4 missions, I think, and by then you'd have established a rapport with the Duchess, Damien, and even the city itself with the natural allure of some side quests calling out to you. You start assigning importance very early on in this DLC, and it makes the decisions feel so much more weighty by assigning that emotional importance not to a person but an idea, to the city. The boss fights as well were pretty well spaced out, and everything flowed really nicely except for one section. I always have something to complain about, I assure you. Not sure if I'm in the minority here, but I did not have fun with the Thousand Fables bit. Did it give me a laugh? Yes. But did I like being forced to interact with Syanna in a kind fashion? Not really, especially since she was dissing Detlef and wanted to get it on with Geralt. I was repulsed. 4 boss fights and gauntlets of pixies didn't help either, especially after just getting done fighting 3 Bruxa and witnessing the burning city. It just felt a little out of place, you know? I was in action mode. But this was just 30 minutes, so it's okay. That's why it's not too important. I just felt the need to mention it, the one major flaw among countless great decisions. In all, I think this expansion fully realizes the potential of fantasy storytelling and gives Geralt a really wonderful, satisfying end, offering a wealth of culture, interactions, and stunning set pieces and moments that make you question your decisions, what to do next, and what all everything meant without pushing you into a box. This DLC embodies what Witcher 3 set out to do from the very beginning. I'd give Blood and Wine a 9.1 out of 10. Not a great DLC, but one of the best ever made. Of course, both DLCs were good fun, being natural expansions to the Witcher formula and offering further experiences for players to bond with Geralt and also sear his journey into their minds. I don't think there'll be many characters like this one, or many stories told to the same effect, but as with art, this story will never fade. Thanks for watching, I appreciate it, and hope you're having a nice day and had a nice time listening. For those interested, next week we'll cover part 3 of my journey into Dark Souls 3, and I'll be looking to shake some things up and add an actual intro to that series. I had an idea for something, you'll see I suppose. I hope I get it to a point where I actually want to put it out, but you know, we'll see. But the game's coming along. I'm now like 40 hours in and finally entered the second half. I'm excited to see what's ahead. As well, I'll be looking to complete a playthrough of a different game that may get a why you should play. I can't guarantee it because, you know, it has to be a good game. I've never played it before, so we'll see. Sadly, none of the suggestions I've received so far have hit a significant sale, so I'm still waiting to see if anything's cheap. But those might only come when the next big seasonal sale hits, unfortunately. And that about wraps up the State of the Channel address. Bye-bye.